The calls to the White House come at least once a week. Murdoch here, the blunt, accented voice on the other end of the line says. For decades, Rupert Murdoch has used his media properties to establish a direct line to Australian and British leaders. But in the 44 years since he bought his first newspaper in the United States, he has largely failed to cultivate close ties to an American president. Until now. Mr. Murdoch and President Trump, both forged in New York's tabloid culture, one as the owner of the New York Post, the other as its perfect subject, have traveled in the same circles since the 1970s, but they did not become close until recently, when their interests began to align more than ever before. Since Inauguration Day, Mr. Murdoch has talked regularly with Mr. Trump, often bypassing the White House Chief of Staff, John F. Kelly, who screens incoming calls. Mr. Murdoch has felt comfortable enough to offer counsel that others may shy away from, such as urging the president to stop tweeting and advising him to improve his relationship with Secretary of State Rex W. Tillerson. Mr. Murdoch also has weekly conversations with Mr. Trump's son-in-law and senior advisor, Jared Kushner. Before the news broke that Mr. Murdoch had agreed to sell vast parts of his 21st Century Fox to the Walt Disney Company for $52.4 billion, Mr. Trump called him to get his assurance that the Fox News Channel, the highly rated cable network and frequent bullhorn of the Trump agenda, would not be affected. On December 14, the day the agreement was announced, Mr. Trump let the world know that he had made a congratulatory call to Mr. Murdoch. Sarah Huckabee Sanders, the White House press secretary, also passed along the president's belief that the deal would be a great thing for jobs, a claim disputed by Wall Street analysts. After decades of ups and downs, Mr. Trump now counts Mr. Murdoch as one of his closest confidants. The two titans made a show of their improved relationship in June 2016, when Mr. Murdoch visited Mr. Trump at the Trump International Golf Links, Scotland before a group of reporters. They appeared together again at a black-tie dinner in May in honor of American and Australian veterans who fought side by side in World War II. Mr. Murdoch introduced the president as "my friend Donald J. Trump" before they engaged in a brief hug. They are opposites in personal style, with Mr. Murdoch gruff and low-key, preferring schlubber newsrooms to Mr. Trump's gilded towers and glitz. But they have much in common. Both were born to wealth, but at a distance from the centers of power. Mr. Trump grew up in Jamaica, Queens, the son of a real estate developer content to earn his fortune in the boroughs outside Manhattan, so close but so far from glittering Midtown, where the sun would make his name and his home. Mr. Murdoch, the son of a journalist who became the owner of a newspaper chain, spent his childhood in Melbourne, Australia. Mr. Murdoch, 86, and Mr. Trump, 71, are also alike in that they were both sent to military schools as boys before going on to outdo their fathers in the family businesses. Although both men piloted their inheritances into global power, they have stubbornly viewed themselves as outsiders at odds with the establishment.